E-N-G-G-E-N-G Spanish. Hey everyone, it's E from E&G Spanish Tutorials. Today we're going to go over a few important verbs that are going to pave the way for the rest of Spanish 1. We're going to go over poder, to be able to, the equivalent of can, querer, to want, preferir, to prefer, tener, to have, and venir, to come. So I'm looking at my list just to make sure I have them all right. So we're going to go over those verbs right now. Able to. This is a stem changing verb, and what that means is it doesn't follow the original rules that you learned where you just drop the ER and add your ER endings. It doesn't work that way. This is a stem changing verb, which means that the O changes to a UE in certain forms. So let's do an example. Yo puedo, I can. Tú puedes, you can. Él, ella, usted puede. So we kept the UE throughout all these forms so far. Now, the nosotros form in stem changing verbs, make a note of this, the nosotros form does not have a stem change. It goes back to the O, or whatever it is originally. So, nosotros podemos, ellos, ellas, ustedes, now we're going back to the UE, pueden. Notice that besides the stem change that happens in these forms, you have your ER ending still. Nothing is different there. The only difference is, since this is a stem changing verb, it carries the stem change throughout all the forms except for nosotros. That's why a lot of times you'll have people call them shoe verbs, because if you outline the ones that have a stem change, it looks like a shoe. This is the shoelace part that doesn't have a stem change. Now let's look at a different kind of change. Let's look at the verb to want. Querer. There's no O in this verb, so it can't be an O to UE change. However, there is another kind of change. This change is an E to IE change. So, what does that mean? It means all of our forms except for the nosotros form will have the IE in it. So, yo quiero. Notice all we did was replace the E with the IE. Tú quieres. Él, ella, usted quiere. Notice our endings are still ER endings. Nothing's changed there. Now, nosotros, be careful here, no stem change. Queremos. It remains an E. Finally, ellos, ellas, ustedes quieren. Now let's look at another verb that's very similar to the conjugation of querer. The verb is preferir, to prefer. Preferir. This E is going to change to IE. So what kind of change is this? It's an E to IE change. Yo prefiero. Tú prefieres. Él, ella, usted prefiere. Nosotros. Now we're going back to normal here. Preferimos. Ellos, ellas, ustedes prefieren. Again, our endings consist with the IR endings. Nothing is new there. What is different is stem change, stem change, stem change. No stem change in nosotros, stem change. Now let's take a look at the verbs tener and venir. The reason they're paired up together is because their conjugations make them look extremely similar, and I'll show you in a little bit. The reason they're also paired together and kind of separate from the ones we just went over is because they are stem changing verbs like the one we just went over. However, in the yo form, something weird happens, and this is not very common, but let's go over them. This is an E to IE change. So is venir. E to IE change. So if we follow our rules, just like our previous video, you should get something like tieno, tieno, T-I-E-N-O. However, the reason these are also separated is because the yo form does not follow that. The yo form is tengo. The yo form for venir is vengo. Very similar, just a letter difference, right? Now, after the yo form, we go back to our original pattern of stem changing verbs. So, tú, this E changes to an IE. Tienes. Venir, tú vienes. Again, they look very similar, just one's a T and one's a V. Él, ella, usted tiene. Nosotros. I'm sorry. Él, ella, usted viene also. Nosotros, what happens with the nosotros form in stem changing verbs? Nothing. No change happens. So forget this. Nosotros tenemos EMOS because it's an ER verb. This is also a stem changing verb. What happens in nosotros? Nothing again, right? We keep the E. The only difference now is it's an IR verb, so we have to include our IR endings. Venimos. That's another difference between the nosotros forms. Finally, ellos, ellas, ustedes. Back to our stem change. Tienen. Ellos, ellas, ustedes. Vienen. You can think of these as like small shoe verbs in the sense that if we draw all the ones that have a stem change, it looks like a smaller shoe. We'll call this bangle, we'll call it a sock if you want. There's your sock, and there's your shoelace. Small shoe, there's your sock. We'll call these sock verbs. And there's your shoelace. That's why these are paired together. Well, you've already learned one. Tener años. To be a certain age. To have X amount of years. Let's learn, okay. What about tener sueño? It means to be sleepy. To be in a hurry is tener prisa. To be correct or to be right, tener razón with an accent on the O. And you can assume you can kind of guess what to be wrong is. Just put a no in front of this. No tener razón is to be wrong or incorrect. To be afraid of something, tener miedo. If you just want to say I'm afraid, you would say tengo miedo. If you want to say I'm afraid of something, tengo miedo de, and then whatever you're afraid of. To feel like doing something, tener ganas de. So if I feel like if I feel like reading, tengo ganas de leer. And if you have a verb after these, you know it's going to be infinitive because they're both prepositions. So after a preposition, our verb is always infinitive. And then our last one, if you can see it way down here, tener que, to have to do something. So now I want you to practice with the following sentences using the tener idioms you just went over. Translate, I am in a hurry. You, using tú, are wrong. She is 20 years old. We feel like eating. They are afraid of Spanish. You, using usted, not tú, are sleepy. I am right. And finally, he has to read. So I'll have the answers in the description down below. So try those out, pause the video, get your answers down, and then just check the descriptions. Thanks for watching. Bye.